Hello, and I hope everyone is doing well. I wanted to talk about something that popped in my mind maybe a few hours ago. I was walking alone, and it was related to something that's not unheard of, I feel, and not something that's very complicated. In fact, very basic thought. And we often talk about the God complex or superiority complex, and we use these words to carefully identify certain situations, certain personalities. And a little part of history has kind of taught us about what is called the Guru Complex. And we often revere our gurus, and we worship our gurus, and we remember them on Guru Purnima or Teachers' Day. And but there's also sort of a dark side related to it, and it can lurk in on sort of every situation that can perhaps have a guru figure. Not necessarily a guru as in, just guru, I feel, is something that you can define where, people go to a person to learn. A guru doesn't become a guru when he says that I am a guru. He becomes a guru when he has people listening to him, people learning from him, people looking up to him. And through the advents of history, I think we've had a number of different types of these teachers. There have been saints, there have been religious gurus, there have been famous teachers, professors, and even in philosophy, we've had gurus that were, or saints that were, I guess they were simple people, and they were, in history, you really never know, because all of the records or all of the documentation that exists is probably in favor of these gurus because it was done by some of their followers, but and you would never know. But I think that there is a sense of like among some gurus there is definitely a sense of rejection of certain evils in life, and in fact practice of what they're preaching, and the whole pure deal, the whole morally and ethically sound side of that culture, that part of history. And then there's the other side that kind of took to using power and using authority and using money and using all these kind of weird evils that they do not necessarily preach, but they definitely practice. And we've had these controversial figures that took to wearing saffron robes and maybe white robes, and all these kind of and they sort of painted a picture of themselves, but years later we found out that there was a totally different side to the story that barely what is the word, corresponds to what they are trying to teach. And so the Guru complex basically comes from, well, if you're given like the slightest power, if you know that two people listen to you, the complex is that those two people have to be people that will never contradict you, that will never tell you that they disagree with you, that will never cross you, and that they will constantly I guess follow you. And that's more of a leader complex than a guru complex. And then you have money, then you have reputation, there's stardom. Western cultures took to these things and sort of turned some of these saintly people or guru people into, I guess, superstars. But there's something more to the guru complex than maybe just all of this. And it can be seen in different areas of history. It can be seen differently in different areas of history. When you talk about things like, there are certain people that have been controversial, but they were eloquent people. They were very wise people. They were incredibly good at getting those thoughts into speech. But not necessarily when you look at their history and when you look at their actions. Maybe some of them were accused of pedophilia, maybe some of them were pedophilia, sorry. Maybe some of them were accused of murder, some of them were accused of some other immoral things that make you question. If they're trying to teach that man can be evil, man makes mistakes, he can live with faults, and he can create reparations, then maybe it's in the right sense of what they're trying to project, wherein even a guru can probably make a mistake. But what I think is when a lot of old thought, a lot of old philosophies talk about surrender. Like, for example, Hindu philosophy will tell you to surrender in the moment. Buddhism, at the start of it, talked about surrendering to the fact that there is suffering in the world and there's pain in the world, no matter what. That was a surrender to that. And then different religions and different schools of thought went by different forms of surrender. So it's not like you necessarily surrender to a guru and you go with everything that he says. That was the real essence of how it was going for a while, certainly. And then what transpired was a bunch of gurus that were that had their egos boosted due to a certain amount of following, and then they went ahead and took advantage of that and completely erased their moral and ethical foundations in relation to the philosophy that they were teaching. And so this is where that Guru complex comes from. It's like, okay, well, you were my follower, but now you probably don't like what I'm saying, or you don't particularly agree with what I'm saying. You're on your way. You're on your way. Don't come in the way of me and my relationship with other people that are definitely in alignment with what I'm saying, that do not cross me nor contradict me. And the Guru complex is not just embedded in the saints and the the religious gurus and the spiritual sort of side of it that was seen in almost everywhere. It was also sort of, and now you can see it more today when you look at anybody with the slightest amount of power, slightest amount of following. For example, social media. You can see so many people just using that reputation to create some kind of authority, some kind of to exert some kind of superiority upon other people. And if you happen to criticize these people on social media that have a following, you might get blocked or reported. There's no inquiry into yourself after you're being contradicted. Then what is the meaning of everything that you've taught? Any philosophy is endless questions. So it's inquiry. It's constant asking. It's not necessarily answers. It's not necessarily solving of those questions. But the moment somebody is contradicted on social media, he's blocked, reported, maybe even cancelled. And it is by people that have found their calling, not maybe via in the physical world, but through a different, I would say, a different context of the same basic principle. It is just a translated modern form of what we've seen in maybe 150 years, probably 1850 to 2000. And now it's on social media and it's everywhere. So now this is what we live with. They had their controversial gurus. We have our social media influencers. Checking out.